Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Chewy in your It's Not Easy Being Green backdrop tonight. Oh, you're stretching. Is it an
It's
important night, is it?
it's a big pole. I've got to be
It's a-
all limber.
That's what she said.
So the green is a subtle, what do they call it? Subversive, subliminal messaging.
Hardly subliminal.
Can go
Hardly.
greener, I'm sure.
How are you, man?
It's when I'm all green. That's when you need to worry about it. I am good, but just to give you an idea of what my evening's been like, right? So I've been at work all day, and then at 3 o'clock they says, "Oh, there's going to be a quick." Just a touch base for everybody that works in the retail stores and stuff like that. So if you could be on the call at 6, that'd be great.
Before you keep going, I've been in workplaces that I've heard that before, and it normally ends in with something like, "Yeah, they've declared bankruptcy today. You don't need to come in tomorrow." That's what that normally makes, and I'm assuming it's not. But keep going.
No, they said it starts at 6. It should be about an hour. I'm like, oh, okay, I can eat dinner while I do that. And then at the same time, for another part of my job, they're like, we've just got a quick touch base. If you could just dial in on the app, and there'll be a quiz, and there'll be some prizes, and that'll be like 20 minutes in and out. So I had both of those overlap. The first call finished 15 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
And I won nothing on the second one. So I feel like I've just finished work. And now I'm into my side hustle job.
Your real
that makes
job.
Me no money.
We should find a pub quiz for a Friday night. You have any pub quizzes in Dunedin? They probably don't do Friday nights, do they?
I knew of one pub quiz, and then that pub decided to host Julian Bachelor for his first tour of Dunedin.
Right.
So let's not do that one.
Okay.
But generally, I do love pub quizzes. My brother actually runs one up in Christchurch. He loves it.
What would your area of expertise be in a pub quiz?
Oh, general
bullshit,
movie stuff,
general
geography
bullshit?
stuff, history stuff.
Yeah, history stuff. You'll be history stuff for sure.
I tell you what, if there's a quiz that's just based around World War II, I'm your man.
Especially the Somme. Is that right? The Somme, is that a place?
The Somme was part of it. Also the Verdun.
Thanks.
The Ardennes. Yeah, for the next round, we're going to do German Panzer development 1934 to 42.
I did a podcast with Sean Wallace when he was in New Zealand one time, the guy from The Chase. He's an interesting cat. He loves New Zealand, loves rugby. So I interviewed him when he was here in Dunedin one time.
I suppose, and this might be a little bit topical. It's a good segue. I'm gonna go with it. If we do a pub quiz,
you said do.
We should probably not do blackface or arrive as the KKK. Yeah, that was a good one for the weekend.
I don't want to do it anymore.
I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen the story about this team that's turned up to a pub quiz dressed as the KKK.
What about jewface? Can we go in jewface?
No. I think you've got plans for working that out later on in the week, don't you?
Maybe.
Can I just cover the thing that made me angry about that story, right? The organizer said, "Oh, we were shocked and disgusted. We didn't do anything.
We let them in
because nobody brought it up. And if somebody had brought it up, we would have done something." If someone comes into whatever you're doing dressed as the KKK, you don't need to wait for the okay from someone. You don't need to be polite about it. You just start throwing chairs at them until they go. That I'm giving everybody authorization that they can do that.
Or if I'm being gracious, if they genuinely, because they were dumb young guys, I believe they're in their 20s, didn't quite get the significance of it, educate them and then tell them to fuck off. Like,
I saw someone going, you've got to go easy. They're rural people. And I'm like, what? Do they just come down from the hills? They could at least get out of their casual clothes.
I've been to dress-up parties which are like, I can't remember how you word it, but like come as something as offensive as possible party. And, people were turning up. I don't know which plane had crashed recently, but they turned up as the ground crew for that plane. And, there was all sorts of horrific things. But that was sort of the vibe of the party. But, yeah, I think if they're young, dumb, and full of cum, as many 20-something-year-olds are, then hopefully education first and then go, now fuck off and get changed, and then you can come back.
I mean, I went to a bad taste party once as a
Bad
son.
taste. Yeah, there you go.
I think that was within a year of 9/11. Would I do that again? Probably not. But yeah, again, as a 20-year-old, yeah, some ideas seem really good at the time. Prince Harry, that probably
Yeah, but Harry was
quite
just going as his great grandfather, wasn't he?
yeah, exactly. It was come
from
as a
German
relative
stock?
party.
Yeah. All right. Hey, heaps to talk about tonight. We're throwing a new topic in there as well. Not that we're going to spend a huge amount of time on it, so we'll probably start there with the One News
90-minute show. Calling it
One
now.
News poll tonight.
Start the clock.
Speaking of jewface, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you think I'm awfully racist, I'm not being racist. I'm actually would it be racist? Because Jew is a religion. Xenophobic. Let's call it xenophobic. Israeli would be the race.
It depends on context, really, doesn't it?
Probably.
I heard a customer say to someone once, oh, "That's a bit Jewy." That would be not great.
Yeah. The situation with what's his name? Bradley. I was gonna say Mortlock.
Bradley Cooper.
Got the names mixed up in my head there. Bradley Cooper wearing a prosthetic nose for a movie that's coming up. Ironically, a prosthetic nose that the man who he's portraying, his family and his children in particular, approved the nose that he was wearing because they wanted Bradley Cooper to look as much like their father as possible. But of course, that's now been turned into, he's wearing a large nose because he's Jewish, and it's a trope about being Jewish, and it's a bad thing. So what we thought we'd do is I actually contacted a synagogue in Wellington to see if they'd come and talk to us about it. Because I thought that's what we try and do, get the experts on. And I think they've put us on to the Jewish Council, and we might have the Jewish Council or a member from the Jewish Council joining us tomorrow night to talk about jewface.
I was going to say not the whole council, surely.
No,
just one.
So if you're interested in that conversation, then maybe we'll pick up on that tomorrow night. But it kind of ties in with Choi's little tangent there. The other thing it ties into is blackface, ACT, national. It kind of does tie in there a little bit, and the latest political poll from One News. So let's have a super quick look at this. We've done no prep for this because it only came out a couple of hours ago. But have a look at breaking news at 6 p.m. tonight. One News, whoever Comar Brunton is now. It's not Comar Brunton, it's someone else. The One News political poll from tonight. Let's go.
Breaking news. The latest One News Varian poll shows National and ACT firmly in the driving seat, 54 days out from the election. And the poll also reveals that Labor's fallen to its lowest numbers in 6 years. Leader Chris Hipkins has also plunged in popularity. National's Christopher Luck.
Interested about these words, and I'm not trying to defend the left here, but they're using words like crashed and plunged and all this. I think Newshub ZB's got a headline story, plummeted, and all this kind of thing as well. I don't know. What would a plummet be? Maybe 3. I mean, I guess 4 points is going to be about, 11%? Maybe it is. No, other way around, 8%. Maybe it is. I'd be interested. It is interesting to know that the words that they choose to put in their scripts and then add in, plummeted, crashed, fair enough. Lowest ever is an accurate thing, but the is it an adverb? What's the describing word, or just a verb that they associate with it? Adjective.
Yeah, no. I mean something like plunged. Like I would say that's like double the normal movement.
I would.
Is it double?
Well, plunged. I think about also jumping off a very high. Like it sounds horrible. You mentioned 9/11. People plunged off the tower. The highest diving board, 15 feet, whatever it is, 12 feet. They plunge off that. So, but I don't know. Just a thought. Keep going.
Luxon now breathing down his neck. We have extensive coverage this evening and begin with political editor Jessica Much-Mackay.
Hi, Jess.
The exclusive details of our latest poll.
Exclusive.
The 2023 campaign is really heating up. So let's take a look at how the numbers have landed.
Okay.
In our latest One News Varian poll, National is on 37, up 2 from our poll a month ago. Labor has plummeted to the 20s, a big drop of 4. ACT is on 13, up 1. The Greens are on 12, picking up 2. New Zealand First is on 4, nudging at that 5% needed to get back into Parliament. And to Party Māori is steady on 3.
All right, let's pause there for 1 sec because it does go on, but let's just have a look. Actually, can I go back a smidge because I want to see what their ups and downs were as well. The ups and downs. So there we go. So up 2, down 4, up 1, up 2, up 1. It's interesting to know that I think 12% of people didn't respond. that, again, and I'm not saying this to defend Labor, it's not a good poll for Labor, the trend has been downward for sure, that with the worst government there's ever been, according to those on the right telling us that, they're not massively increasing. I mean, they get a majority here, they get a majority in the House here, it's all above board. You know, I'm not questioning the numbers that they've got up there. It's I was going to say it seems close. It's not close in this poll, but it doesn't seem to be that huge of a disparity between how Luxon and Seymour are talking about Labor and the numbers that Labor's actually. I mean, like, you could flip it and say, well, Labor's at least 2.5 times as good as ACT, if you wanted to look at it that way as well. But we're not trying to defend it. Yeah, bad news, not good news. Any first initial thoughts, Chewy?
Yeah, I had a couple here. Like, I think that this looks like Labor losing it from both ends. Like, the left side is gone to the Greens, the middle has gone to National. The right wing, the guys truly in the middle, have headed over to National. I don't think it's benefited New Zealand First. I don't think it's benefited ACT. I think that's where it's gone. And I think this is, like, it's hard to say that anything that Labor has done in the past couple of months has been inspiring in any sort of way.
Yeah.
And I can't see them learning the lesson in time. You know, we've talked in the past about, you know, their support parties talking about wealth tax, ruled it out.
Yeah.
Shall we do this? Ruled it out. Are we going to do anything about tax? Not really. We are just going to hold the line and hope for the best. And it's it's not
kind
a
of feels like that's kind of what it is. I mean, you know, there's an idea in sport sometimes, like you do it in golf, you do it in cricket. It's called hit and hope. You just swing away and see how where the ball ends up. Hit and hope. And it does feel a little bit like that, because it seems that some of the policies that were popular and have proven to be popular, or have proven to be popular even more so on the left, like the capital gains tax, wealth tax, they're moving away from, which means the left is kind of going, and there's no one else being inspired by them. I mean, people are still saying wait till the debates. You know, when you put Chippy up against Luxon in the debates, it'll be a different story. But there gets to a point, it's like, I mean, sorry for a second sporting analogy in one thing, but once they're far enough ahead, once the team are far enough ahead, if you have a bad last quarter of the game, there's not enough time to catch up.
Yeah,
so
look, I think the debates are great for people like us, because it's blood sport, right? But what about the vast majority of people who just look at the polls?
Yeah.
And like, I've seen so many comments this week, right, of just the sheer weight of National and ACT billboards that are out there. Now, I'm not suggesting that people make up their mind on billboards, but when they're everywhere,
yeah,
like it's a pretty stark difference. Like, I've started seeing National ads on YouTube and stuff like that. The war chest that National and ACT have between them, like I saw someone saying that those two parties have 5 times the financial resources from fundraising than anyone on the left. That their messaging is pretty consistent in the media. Their advertising is everywhere. As we've discussed, you know, the language is plummeting, death spiral, you know, breathing down the neck of, all of that sort of thing. I think that stuff, for the majority of people that don't follow this day to day and all of that sort of stuff, it just ties into what we've spoken to before. It's a foregone conclusion. I don't need to vote, or I want to vote for the winning team, so I'm going to.
Yeah, it goes both ways though, actually. And look, this is we're already tangenting for our 3-minute story to go well beyond it. Because people may look at the National ACT numbers there and go, well, I don't need to vote. And that might stop people going to the polls from the right. And they might look at Labor, Green, and goes, there's no point in me voting. I don't know which is a stronger pull, but I think it's fair to say that the right is typically better organised than the left when it comes to turning up the polls. So that's that. Here's a question for you. I think it's more marked in America, as in more obvious in America, but people voting against their self-interest. Now, I was
just going to say this. Yeah,
I think it's more obvious in America because you've got sort of Dave Chappelle refers to them as the dusty whites, basically lower socioeconomic, the poorest, uneducated people in rural America being white, voting for a billionaire who is giving tax cuts to the wealthiest people and not helping in any areas like free healthcare or anything like that. It's a bit different in New Zealand because, not to play too much of a racial card, but that dusty white people in America is filled by lovely brown people in New Zealand. So they're not the people who are voting for ACT and National necessarily anyway, certainly not en masse. But is there a sector of the right that are voting against their own self-interest? And why are they doing it? Is it because they just hate Jacinda still so much that even if I vote against my own self-interest, let's say financially on this side, it's still worth it in their books? Or is it all about those evangelicals, and it comes to we want to have an evangelical in, and the only thing that matters is abortion?
Yeah, well, we all know that Twitter's not real life, but
What?
look at your replies today. People talking about communism, and every time I see that, it's like, oh, we're going to get rid of these communists. It's like, pick up a book and find out what communism actually is, because no, or even like quite hard out socialism. No, nobody's really doing it here. We have soft, friendly socialism. And we always will, because even National know not to fuck with that too much. But yeah, when you say people voting against their own self-interest, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you voting for National? Do you make more than $170,000 individually per year? Do you have teeth in your head? Do your children have teeth in their head?
Mm-hmm.
And you're still voting for National, you are voting against your own self-interest.
Maybe it's not quite so obvious in New Zealand. Like we talked about the American situation, we've all seen documentaries about how people, had to pick which finger they were going to save and which they were going to let be cut off because they didn't have enough money to pay for two fingers. Because we do have that safety net and that sort of thing in New Zealand. Maybe voting against your own self-interest in New Zealand, affects you 5%. Whereas voting against your own self-interest in America affects you 50%. So maybe they don't feel it quite so much. So it's not quite such the same consideration. I don't know.
And I mean, as far as people donating to political parties, who knew that in a cost of living crisis where the ordinary people are having to tighten their belts, that the parties that represent those people haven't got enough money compared to the parties that are representing the millionaires and the big business owners and that sort of thing, who have managed to increase their profits, even though the rest of us are doing it really tough. Yeah. Like I saw one today that, what was it? Simeon Brown was saying that, what would be better for what would be a better service than regional rail? Intercity bus. Intercity buses made an enormous donation to National. It's like you don't even have to dig very far to see where National's compromised. But this shit is working. Their messaging is working.
Yeah.
People get to a stage where you have two terms of a government and it's like, well, there's some things that piss me off. It's time to let the other guys in, even if it's going to hurt them.
There is a French philosopher, we could probably Google this and get the exact quote, but there's a French philosopher from like the 1800s whose quote is translated into something like, we get the government that we deserve. Right? The government you get is the government you deserve. The government you vote in is the government you deserve. And I just wonder, 12 months from now, if we're under a National Act government, it's a bit like, there was remorse the day after Brexit, because people are like, what? I was only doing it as a protest. This is going to make a difference. I wonder if in 12 months from the election, if there will be a bunch of regret, whatever the election thing is for these guys, or if people will be happy with who they've got because, we get the government that we deserve as we vote them in.
I mean, there's so many examples of exactly what we're talking about, right? Brexit is a great one. Trump is the other. Lots of people voted for Trump thinking he was their man. And exactly as we've been talking about with Winston, he doesn't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about you. It doesn't matter if you've decided to vote for National for a bit of change. You didn't give them $500,000. They're not going to give a shit about what you care about in any more than a passing way. You don't put $500,000 on the barrel and not expect something in return.
Yeah, and look, if people didn't see our chat with Sanjana Hatatua on Friday night, it was a pre-record, but it was a conversation. You should have a look at it. One of the points that came out of that when I was being all sort of trying to figure things out and trying to work out what was going on about, when Winston Peters says this and he says this, and Sanjana just said, yeah, but he doesn't believe that. And I'm like, oh no, I'm aware of that. And that's what we're trying to say. But the thing is, he doesn't believe it. And the evidence of him not believing that bullshit around bathrooms and stuff is the philosophy that he puts out is going to stop, 6-month-old boys from going into the women's room with their mothers. I mean, literally to the letter of the law, it would stop that. So he hasn't thought it out. It's just all, I don't like the term populist because it implies popular, and that implies to me majority rule a little bit. It's not, it doesn't have to be majority to be popular, but it is what it is. It is what it is. That, if people want to look it up, that French philosopher was Joseph de Maistre, Maistre is a guy. Joseph de Maistre is a guy that kind of. And I think Thomas Jefferson said something similar.
Yeah, he did. I think we had Matthew Hooton giving Chippy some advice, and I think we can pretty much rule out that he's going to take that. But I do wonder if someone's like looking at this and going, what we're doing is not working. Do we stay the course or do we do some quite dramatic changes? And it's just like they've made promises. If they change course now, they'll get lashed for flip-flopping, and can you really trust them? So I think they're locked in. And it's just, for a lefty like myself, it's just so uninspiring. There's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say for me to care about, not necessarily for me. Like, I know as a middle-income, middle-aged white guy with no kids, generally there isn't much in the pot for me anyway, from either party. If I was talking about things that would benefit me directly, it's all solidly green.
Yeah.
And I'm of the mind that those things would benefit more people than anything else the other parties are offering. So at this stage, that is very clear. That's where I'm going.
Yep. Here's the guy, Joseph de Maistre, and I highlighted his quote down here. So I'm not going to try and speak French because I can't, but it's every nation gets a government it deserves.
Oh, I can do that in French. Oh, baguette,
Toute
galette.
nation et le gouvernement, quel something or other else. English transversion, several variations, including every country has the government it deserves, and in a democracy, people get the leaders they deserve. The quote is popularly misattributed to well-known commenters such as Alexei Du something or other and Abraham Lincoln. So there you go. That's the dude I was thinking of. All right, let's
that's definitely what I'll be screaming from the rooftops.
You fucking deserve this, you pricks.
Yep.
Something like that.
You bunch of bastards. Literally from the street every morning until...
Let's keep going with the story, seeing we're currently 23 minutes in and 55 seconds into the clip. Here we go.
I told people what was going on.
Let's take a look at some of the other parties that are making an appearance. Freedom's New Zealand is steady on 1. The Opportunities Party has dipped to 1, and Legalise Cannabis is now registering on 1.
Don't care about any of this.
The number of people who don't know how they'll vote is 12%.
Right,
not enough, and they'd be warming the opposition.
So the other thing about this whole situation is the preferred prime ministership. And let's just have a look at what it came out today. People are talking about, how well Luxon's doing now. That's a bit of a stretch, but let's have a look.
Now let's bring up the preferred prime minister numbers, and the gap between the top two is narrowing.
So again, downward 3%, right? Downward trend.
Chris Hipkins is on 21, dropping 3 since last month. Christopher Luxon is just behind on 20, so 1 percentage point in it.
So basically, Christopher Luxon is still not exciting the place. And like I've been saying for a long time, that it appears to me, and from my readings and listenings to commentators and stuff out there, people much wiser than me, is that if you're not preferred prime minister, it's very hard to win an election. He nearly is preferred prime minister, but not based around his performance, but based around people moving away from Chippy or away from Labour altogether. So will he become preferred prime minister in this poll? Perhaps. Will he become it because people are inspired and want him to lead the country? Doesn't look like it. But it's still, if Chippy drops 2 points and next time it's 20-19, then he's leading the preferred prime minister polls. Chewy.
Yeah, look, I think Christopher Luxon has been perfectly clear. I don't know. I don't have any other statement to follow that. I think you're exactly right. There's nothing there to say. Like even the term preferred prime minister, right? It's not really reflected. I think if I was Chris Hipkins, the term, here's my sporting analogy for tonight.
Woohoo!
The race is yours to lose.
Yeah.
And I think Hipkins is losing that. He's hemorrhaging preferred prime minister points because he's not doing anything inspiring.
Yeah, he's not looking to be a prime minister. We're not looking to him and go lead our country, please.
God, that was something that Jacinda was just really good at.
Yeah.
That emotive follow me into the future sort of stuff was really, really good. And she came across like that. Whereas it just seems like Hipkins is in apologetic mode because it's not working.
Now, before this polling came out...
There's no, take me into the future, Chippy.
Before this polling came out, I wanted to already play two other very short videos. And I think... And I understand him not wanting the job, which is probably the situation. But I have to tell you, and I'll show you some footage of us talking about this before the leadership changed over, New Zealand has the Labour Party leader it deserves, sitting in the wings, who is not the leader. And this is he.
You know, your superpower is that you are sort of an anti-politician. And it strikes me that is the reason that people are drawn to you, or that you stand out. Do you see that about yourself?
No, I just don't know many big words. I think that's the difference. I love this job. It's an awesome thing to do, a massive privilege. You know, when someone comes into our office in Masterton and they've had a string of bad luck, and we find them a house, or we help them get financial support, or help them with ACC, or just recently I got funding for new trains for the region. That's massive, you know, and that's what I love about this. I don't know why I've stood out. I try not to think about it because it makes me feel uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, I just love playing cricket and hanging out with my family and my mates and doing stuff for my region.
Right. Number one. There's point number one, right? I think he's got the whole likability in spades. Now, when it comes to him being a bit of a straight shooter in policy, part two.
Well, something that the Nats are definitely going to repeal is the Three Waters legislation if they get in. Are we still calling it Three Waters?
It's affordable water now.
Affordable water. Okay, affordable water. Well, they're going to repeal it, aren't they?
I don't believe them.
You don't? Why not? You think they're bluffing?
I think they're participating in politics. But I don't think that they will, and I'll tell you why, is because they are campaigning as if there's been no changes made. And what they're proposing is the status quo, which the local government sector don't want. We can prove what we're doing will save ratepayers money. They can't, because their policy is the status quo. And every council in the country, bar possibly one or two, have told me that they can't do it by themselves. So there'll be just as much backlash on what they're proposing as there was on our original proposal.
Well, there was a lot of backlash.
But people are comfortable with it now.
But it's been a dog of a process, hasn't it? This all started in 2016. We're in 2023 now.
Oh, well, I love a challenge.
Clear.
So I have to tell you, and without trying to be like yay us, now one of our selections didn't age that well, Michael Wood, but back in the day, me and Simon Wilson were having a chat about this when the leadership was due to be decided, and this is what we said back then.
Actually, you know, you scrolled past Michael Wood to get to Kieran McNulty, but he has been doing some pretty good messaging along those terms.
They're my two choices. Those are the two I came to. I was Kieran's number one, Michael's number two. And if Kieran says no, Michael's number two. But I think, honestly, especially in that provincial kind of cred, gumboot wearing youth. And look, it sounds horrible, but I understand messaging. That's what it is. He's the guy. He's the guy.
There you go. So we've been singing that since the leadership thing was over. And I tell you what, the more I see of him, the more I wish they had of. They didn't. And he won't take a poison chalice now. But it was a mistake to have Chippy in and not have Kieran in. He may not have wanted it, so I guess that's his call. But I just, sliding doors.
You just turn around and
it could have been
tough.
Yeah.
Tag, you're it. Get in.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to that with a couple of key things that should swing the electorate. His vehicle.
Yeah, it's a beauty, isn't it?
You always judge an MP by his electorate vehicle. There you go. That is the vehicle of someone that actually works in the region. It is not a huge, big SUV. It's a fucking old ute. And we cannot talk about him without this one. Is that up? Oh,
is it a socialism clip?
It bloody.
The will withdraw and apologise. Kieran McAnulty.
Thank you very much. Right. Yeah, I am a socialist, and I'm proud of it. Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Bring it on. And I'm very proud to say to the good people of Wairarapa, elected a proud socialist as their MP.
Thanks, David Seymour, for your editorial bent on that video. But that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with socialism.
No, let me say as well, apologies. That was, of course, David Slack. I don't know why I said Simon Wilson. I got my brain farted there for a second. But yeah, I just, look, it's pointless having this conversation today, but, you know, one wonders. It's a bit like with fucking Trump versus Clinton. One wonders if Bernie had been the nominee, what would have happened. One wonders if they had have actually, if he turned it down, that's all well and good. He's entitled to do that. But if they had have gone a different path, it's just that, you know, no bullshit, speaks a real language, gets in there, you know, with his gumboots on, puts his elbow, but then also comes to policy or political games and he basically goes, yeah, they're bullshitting. Because this is the thing we've been saying about Three Waters the whole time. Yeah, okay, turn Three Waters down, but it's going to cost everyone in your region more. Have you told them that part of the conversation? Oh, you haven't? National, have you told them that? Oh, you haven't? Okay. And if so, of course, they're not going to do it. Of course, they're going to follow through on the Affordable Water Act or whatever it's called now. And everyone will forget the uproar that they had about Three Waters because that was Jacinda and Jacinda bad. But Luxon doing it under a different name, yeah, okay, we'll do that.
I won't forget it, Pat, and I won't forget the fact that if it doesn't go through, I'll tell you why. It's because of fucking racism and politicians buying into that shit and cashing in on it. And this is my huge bugbear with this election cycle is everyone's fucking dialed that up to 9 again. I got a couple of comments I want to put up about Kieran as well. Pursuit 82 says Kieran also isn't associated with the government's COVID response like Chippy was.
Yeah.
I think that is a good point. Like, however you want to say that, his hands are clean. That's neither good nor bad. And DIY Guru makes an excellent point here. The job of the Prime Minister is very demanding. Doesn't leave you much time to do what you're good at. Yeah. And I think Chippy's a really good example of this. Is like I was really happy with the stuff that he did and the stuff that he had profile for beforehand, and then I'm being real critical of him now because I'm not seeing that same guy.
Yeah,
where's old Chippy? Get him some dirty dogs and a sausage roll and a fucking.
Oh no, fuck! He has to stop. He has to leave the sausage rolls alone. I'm getting sick of that every single fucking press conference. But it's fair. I like that point because it's a bit like we were talking about your queen a few weeks ago, and that she's got the freedom to basically roam and do what she wants without having to worry about leadership. So she has the freedom to be an amazingly well-informed MP with lots of data and facts because she doesn't have to worry about leadership. We're talking about Chloe Swarbrick if you're a new joiner to the show.
If Chippy can't have sausage rolls, can I make a suggestion of a substitution that I think the electorate would accept from someone from the Hut? No, he's not from the South. He's from the Hut, so I want to keep it real. Okay. He can no longer talk about sausage rolls, and he must always be shown with a can of Blue V and maybe like a half-lit cigarette.
Yeah, it's about right too. And a can of DB. What would it be in Hutt Valley? I mean, West Auckland, it was Lion Red. You had your Lion Red in West Auckland. You've got your Spates in Dunedin. What would it be in Hutt Valley?
Oh, Tui maybe. It'd be Lion Red again, I reckon. Oh, Cody's. It'd be a Cody's.
Oh, okay, there you go.
A Cody's, a pie, and a cigarette. A tradies breakfast.
There you go. Perfect. Is there anything else in the chat you want to throw out there? I think we've that little short introduction for a non-prepared conversation that just went for 34 minutes. We should probably move on, but I mean, if there's important
what was going to happen.
Yeah, I
warned them.
Yeah, that's why you're for it. We need to start the show. We need to start the show at some stage, sure.
This is the preamble. Famiko says, any politician that says, here's the guts of it gets my vote. Absolutely. Let's stick with our fucking heritage. V Bunch here says, Chippy's still being the PM at the moment. Parliament closes down in a fortnight, then he'll be campaigning.
Yeah, but will it be too little too late?
I wonder what that change will be.
Yeah, will it be too little too late? And to be honest with you, after what Hooten said last week, which I kind of agree with, I don't like that it's dirty politics, but I do agree that it would make a difference. Will he come out all guns blazing? I don't get the sense he will. I get the sense he's a little bit in the mold of Jacinda. Be nice, just the facts, no personal attacks. That's the vibe I get. I could be proven wrong. If I am, I'll withdraw and apologise, but they're the vibes I get.
Yeah, taking the high road. Yep, sure. But you can also aggressively take the high road.
What, like push people off the road as you go past them, that sort of thing?
Chuck rocks from the top.
Okay.
Of like, these guys are telling you lies.
Yeah.
They are lying to you. Their numbers are wrong. Here are the correct numbers.
What about Woodstock, bourbon, and Coke?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. Maybe that wouldn't be good for the 9 a.m. presser, but if it's after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I reckon it'd be all good. I mean, Rob Mulder with it.
McAnulty just got my vote. If that's true, I didn't see it.
He said, "Oh,
on 7 days."
Okay.
All right, I want to move on to my favourite story of the night. Are we ready to go?
Sure.
Because I think it's fucking hilarious. All of you know that I have a bit of a soft spot for the old religious, right? The old religious type situation. There's a situation in America recently where there is a guy called Russell, what's his name? Russell Moore, I think. Russell Moore. Russell Moore used to be this really big dude and I don't mean he lost weight, high profile person in that whole kind of evangelical world. Now I'm sorry, I don't want to
that headline.
I don't want to mansplain to you all, but the evangelical right in America is people who identify with the Christian church, but they love war, yet they hate abortion. They love the death penalty, yet they don't want to give young kids under 5 food stamps to help them survive. This is this world, this very strange world, and they vote for Republicans. Probably this time around they vote for Trump. As long as you're saying you're pro-life and anti-abortion, they'll vote for you, even if you've probably paid for numerous ones of them yourself and slept with a porn star while your wife was pregnant and you like to grab people by the pussy. But what did you say about abortion? You've got my vote. No problems at all. Well, to his credit, this guy here, who was part of that world, former evangelical leader, when Trump came out, he was like, hang on, guys, this doesn't really fit with the world that we've been talking about and trying to sell to people. So he kind of pulled away from that movement. And as he pulled away from that movement, he lost all sort of work and jobs and he lost his responsibility. And when it came to issues around Trump and what happens, he then wrote a book, right? And he talks about the divisive US politics. This is what he says. He says he thinks that the large part of the issue about how divisive US politics is, which is now spilling over into the church. I actually wonder if it's the other way around. It was divisive in the church and it's spilling into politics.
Yeah.
But either way, he pointed out how to do have to do with a lot of issues packaged in terms of existential threat, leading to the belief among everybody, not just evangelical Christians, that, quote, desperate times will call for desperate measures. Now, what that means is desperate times call for desperate measures. I don't mean what does it mean. I'm not going to explain that to you, but it means we will put up with Trump because desperate times call for desperate measures, even though he doesn't maybe tick our box completely. It makes sense that then evangelical Christians would embrace Trump, what I just said, who portrayed himself as the answer to many of those supposed existential threats. Trump both campaigned and governed on a largely evangelical Christian platform. He moved the US embassy to Israel, from Israel to Jerusalem. He cracked down on immigration in majority Muslim countries, and he appointed multiple conservative judges, including to the Supreme Court, which has swung sharply to the right. Now, Russell Moore has written a book, and I can't see what the name of the book is. I'll find it for you. But he was talking to NPR last week, and he talked to NPR, and one of the issues he says he's identifying in the evangelical church at the moment is that they basically think Jesus is a bit of a hippie. He's too peaceful, he's too kind, and they don't like it. Remember, these are the people who say that Jesus figure is the central of my beliefs. He's the central figure in my beliefs. Christian means Christ-like. It means to emulate yourself after this figure, right? To mimic what this figure was all about, supposedly. And this is what he said on NPR about what's happening when he was talking about the crisis in Christianity.
Today in America. Well, it was the result of having multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching.
Now, the Sermon on the Mount is probably one of the most famous. Most people will know it. You know, blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor. It's blessed all the people who are doing it fucking hard, right? They will inherit the earth. That's what it talks about. Blessed are all these underlings, right? All these people who haven't got it quite as good as you. Well, they're very blessed, and one of the reasons they're blessed is because of the troubles they're going through. That's the theme of that sermon. So basically, look after the widows and orphans.
Multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching. Turn the other cheek. To have someone come up after and to say, where did you get those liberal talking points? And what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ, the response would not be, I apologize. The response would be, yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak. And when we get to the point where the teachings of Jesus himself are seen as subversive to us, then we're in a crisis.
I mean, how do you even begin to fix that problem, though, when the central message of the gospel is something that a lot of people in the church do not seem to want to fully embrace?
I don't think we fix it by fighting a war for the soul of evangelicalism. I really don't think we can fix it at the movement level. And that's one of the reasons why when I'm talking to Christians who are concerned about this, my counsel is always small and local. I think we have to do something different and show a different way. And I see in history, every time that something renewing and reviving has happened, it's happened that way. It's happened at a small level with people simply refusing to go with the stream of the church culture at the time. And I think that's where we need to be now.
So there you go. I think you have no idea, Cherry, from someone like me who's been in that world, how humongous that is. I mean, I know that I talk about this probably a bit too much. It's not the audience we're looking for, but I've said this many times before. And Russell Moore just said when the teachings of Jesus, and I don't care what you believe, but it's pretty hard to struggle that those actual teachings that he puts out there, look after the widows and orphans, turn the other cheek, you know, if someone needs the shirt off your back, give them more, that kind of stuff, are good teachings. I think he's a lefty lunatic like some of us. And his message at the time to the established church was subversive. And what is happening now is people who are on the right in America are finding his message today subversive. What that means is they are as bad and as horrific as the church was back in the days those stories were written, which means they are the enemy of the religion, even though they claim to adhere to and own that sort of religion. And I just find it utterly fascinating, Chewy. No one else probably does, but I do.
No, I find it interesting as well. And look, I wasn't raised with a religion. I've been very critical of religion as well. So I'm going to couch it in terms that I get, right? I have the same sort of issue. Like, I'm a big Star Wars fan, obviously, with my name and a lot of the shit behind me here. It's like when people hero worship the Empire and you're going, you're cheering for the baddies. Don't do that. But yeah, even my layman's knowledge of Christianity, right? And to see these guys are like, are you kidding? This guy would hate everything that you are, that you're doing in his name. Like, it's just bizarre to me. Like, I was going to say it's little things. It's not really a little thing, right? When you had Christian Americans going on about how incompatible Islam is and they worship a different God, and it's like, no, same God, same part of the world it came from. Jesus is prophet in Islam, same God. And they don't know. And this is the thing, when people slide into fascism, they do it through populism and they do it through ignorance. And I think one of the biggest problem that, well, America has a lot of problems, but if they slide into a civil war, it's going to be along religious lines and it's going to be across racial lines. And that is going to be, well, biblical, not in a good way. It's going, like, when you look at civil wars and stuff like that have broken down over religious lines, like some of the worst shit imaginable, literal hell on earth opens up. And yeah, we're talking about a heavily armed country with unresolved racial issues, dividing over religious lines, and they got nukes. So it's all good news. All good news. Hopefully, climate change gets us first.
Point. Do you think that the first nukes America uses in battle might be, or not the first, because Hiroshima, but of the modern era, might be America on America? Might be Texas bombing California. that might be the first time it gets used in that kind of conflict, missiles rather than bombs. Look, I just think
all I'd be saying is if I lived in California, I'd be pretty worried. I think California is first on the hit list.
If people who watch the show, one thing you know is we do our best to be consistent. I'm not arrogant enough to say we always get it right, but we do our best to be consistent. And the thing I love about the conversation around the sort of American Christian right is they're just so inconsistent. Like I've already pointed out, they're all pro-life, but they support the death penalty. Hang on. What? That's the opposite, you know, or they support war or the troops or that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you shouldn't support the people who are the troops, but they support the war that the troops are in. You know, it's just, they all have guns. And this is the problem, Chewie. If there's a civil war in America, you know who owns all the guns? It's not the liberals and it's not the people of color, the minorities. It's the evangelicals who somehow think Jesus would have had an AK because that's the kind of gun that Jesus would have had. It's just I just find it hilarious because I've said for such a long time, and if you've watched us for a while, you'll know I've probably said it here, that Jesus was a lefty. All his messages.
He was also a tradie. He'd love a Cody's and a blue V
and half a fag,
and a pie. Yeah.
By fag, I obviously mean cigarette people from America because that's the terminology we use for it. All right, and look, Mr. Anderson's right. I've got these bunch of I've already said. It's not that they're pro-life; it's that they're pro-life birth. That's what it is.
Yeah,
they're pro-life.
Yeah, because
birth,
every birth is a potential soldier in Christ's army.
Yeah. And after the baby comes out, they don't give a fuck about the kid. But that's what it is.
Absolutely not.
Some text messages. Should we do some text messages?
Yeah, sure.
Everything with evangelicals is existential. Without that, their world falls apart.
Everything's crouched as a war or a struggle. And when Muslims do it, it's very scary.
Yeah.
When evangelicals do it, it's fine.
Yeah. Yep. And here's some messages straight from the old JC himself. I was thirsty. You gave me something to drink. I was a stranger. You invited me in. You needed clothes. You clothed me. I was sick. You looked after me. I was in prison. You visited me. Now think about that, and then think about a right-wing Republican with all those sorts of things. For Christ's sake, and God help us get rid of evangelicals. Old Testament God was Republican, like that one. That's pretty cool. Jesus went broke because he went woke. Jesus was the original wokester. There are many memes portraying Jesus as woke that they can't stand. LOL. Jesus was a good man. Jesus was an Arab. I'm an atheist. Racist Catholic. Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple. Brian Tamaki. Just saying that to you, Brian Tamaki. So there you go. Sorry, I was kind of you were talking about something else here. I kind of cut you off there, too.
Oh, this is a tangent. You mentioned people of color not being armed and stuff like that. I think it was in the aftermath of yet another shooting over in the States, and if you guys are familiar with the hip hop group Run the Jewels, I got sucked into a conversation with Killer Mike from Run the Jewels about staying armed. And I was like, oh, as a New Zealander, the fact that you all have guns is just fucking crazy to me. And then he gave me a point of view that I didn't have before. And he was like, as an African American, I think we should all be armed because the state is not here to protect us. The police aren't here to protect us. That sort of thing. So I am always going to be pro Second Amendment because when things go south, that's the only thing that is going to be there to protect us. And I sat there and I went, oh shit, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit like if that's the rules of the game you're playing, in other words, in that country, then if you didn't play them on some level, you may lose the game quite seriously at times. I hate it. I don't know if I was living in America now, would I own guns? Probably not. But then
I had a really good conversation about that, with my partner. I said, look, if we lived in the States, yes, I probably would, because again, that's the world you live in, and I would be a responsible gun owner who followed all the rules and who voted and wouldn't be part of the NRA. But yeah.
All right. Let's keep going. We're going to keep trucking because now we're on to our second story of the night already. We want to have a look.
Oh, look at that pause, though.
Look at that. That's not even me. That's the start. May not quite be the start. There's the start there. We were talking a little bit about, there's a couple of things going on here. It's really about the ACT Party wanting to attach performance pay to public sector jobs. I think primarily the executives in there, and basically giving them the opportunity to be paid based on their outcomes. That's turned into a bit of conversation about the public sector on Twitter today, but let's just have a look at this because Ryan Bridge had on an expert in the public service group, part of the union in the area, and I'm going to watch more of Ryan's commentary than we normally watch, although we haven't had Ryan on for a while. Welcome back, Ryan, friend of the show, because he seems so dismissive. This person, I guess, would be an expert, and it's like he's trying to convince this person to his view being right over her view as someone working in the area. But let's just, we'll play a few minutes of this and give you the gist of it and then jump back.
Now, the ACT Party has vowed to rein...
I apologise, it seems to be in mono in my ear. I don't know if it's mono in your ear, Chewy, but if it's mono in your end, if you're listening in stereo,
all right.
I apologise, it's in mono in my ear. Here we go.
Now, the ACT Party has vowed to rein in public sector spending if elected. It wants more accountability and has promised to introduce performance pay for the chief executives of government departments and agencies. Public Service Association National Secretary Kerry Davies is with us. Kerry, thank you for being with us. What's wrong with performance pay for public sector bosses? These guys are earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if they're not getting the results...
I could stop this conversation before it goes any further. Can I just answer it before she's much better than me, but the answer is, well, it depends what your metric is. How do you measure a service? Public sector is typically services. How do you measure a service? I went through this when national standards came out, and was I teaching when national standards came out? No, I don't think I was. But the point being, if you have that's an even better freeze frame. Did you notice that one? If you had a school with children who weren't doing quite so well because that's the level they were at, then advancing them, 10%, they may still not be doing as well as the school next door where they're doing much better. How do you measure that metric? Which is more valuable? When you're providing a service for a government, how do you measure what is success necessarily? I'm not saying not for everything. There will be some categories you'll be able to do it in, but of course ACT comes out, David Seymour comes out and just goes, well, half of MBIE will go. Okay, which half? Nothing. How will they go? Nothing. So this is another one of these, I hate the term, populist type things. Populist to the people who would vote for ACT is that we're going to make these bosses performance pay. How are you going to do that? Well, we don't have any of that information.
Do we? I don't have to follow it through.
No, because honestly, people like Ryan Bridge will do the yards for me. And honestly, he does. Have a listen.
Shouldn't we introduce performance pay so that they might do that?
Paying bonus payments to CEs to motivate them to do their job is not the solution. What the public service needs is skilled staff and resources to be able to deliver on the substantial challenges that we face as a country. Those challenges and the issues that we now have to deal with are very complex and also are growing in magnitude. And so we need a really competent and well-resourced public service to be able to properly support the government of the day.
Okay, how much more resource does the public service need? Currently, the average CEO salary is $478,000 and core Crown expenditure has increased from $80 billion in 2017 to $137 billion today. That is a 70% increase. How much more resource do you need?
Which of course is an unanswerable question. It's like, hey, Chewy, I know you're fixing up your house and you budgeted $100,000 and now you're saying you want $200,000. How much more do you need? Well, the answer is, well, it depends on how much work we're going to get done. If we need $200,000 to refurbish the house, then $200,000 is what we need. If we only need $100,000, then $100,000 is what we need. So it's a trap question that doesn't have an answer, and because it doesn't have an answer, you can't suffice it.
No, he just wanted to mention those numbers.
Yep.
That was the whole purpose of that.
Yep.
The public service is a lot more than the CEs. It's ordinary teachers, nurses, people delivering much needed social services to ordinary New Zealanders. And the percentage of the public service that has remained, the employment, the workforce, has remained at 20% over the last 20 years. So that is irrespective of which government has been in government, which political party has been in government, that the public service workforce has maintained a consistent percentage of the overall employment.
But the numbers have gone up under Labor.
Well, we've
They haven't gone noticing.
Up under Labor. They've gone up commensurate with the.
Yeah, but listen to the answer. We'll start again.
Well, they haven't gone up under Labor. They've gone up commensurate with the population increase.
Proportionally.
I guess here's the problem, Kerry.
Okay, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard an interviewer say. Honestly, this is the dumbest thing.
That's a high bar for Brian.
No. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard an interviewer say, because she's just said, yes, the numbers have gone up, but they've gone up proportionally to the population increase, and this is his fucking response.
Problem, Kerry. The public's not agreeing with what you're saying.
Oh, I didn't realise that the public get to decide what the data is. I didn't understand that the public get to say, we don't agree with you, therefore you're wrong, person with the data and the facts. It is the dumbest thing I've ever heard an interviewer say in an interview. Person A gives facts, person B goes, yeah, but the public don't like those facts. This is the interview.
Oh, thanks for that. It's statistics and facts. Let me just reach into my bag here. It doesn't match up with these right-wing vibes that I have.
It's just the vibe.
How do you answer that?
Well, let's see how he answers it, eh?
With the population increase.
Okay, but I guess that here's the problem, Kerry.
It's not a problem.
The public's not agreeing with what you're saying.
Not agreeing.
Like the government expenditure has increased by 70% over the last 5-6 years. And
I wonder what happened
the
to
public, according to surveys, is saying actually our services are getting worse, whether it's health or education or whatever. Are you saying the answer to that is actually more money? I mean, can you see the mismatch here?
Well, just to go back to your question, there's been an increase of 14,000 public servants since 2017 in the core public service. There's been an increase in the private sector of 100,000 employees. So we need to get this in perspective. We've also had during that time, that includes people who have been employed to deal with the COVID response, and also with the weather events, and also to manage the increase in demand due to population increases.
So have all those people who are hired due to the COVID response now been fired now that COVID's over?
Some of them have.
We've still got all those people.
That's not true.
So let's be real. And why are you comparing us to the private sector? Why are you comparing us to the private sector when the private sector is growing? You know, that they're trying to grow jobs, they're trying to grow an economy. How is that a relevant comparison?
What do you think the public sector is?
Because the private sector can't grow without a strong public sector, and you've just witnessed that throughout the last 3-4 years during the business subsidy payments, the employment support that private sector employers needed to be able to deal with emergencies. And if we're going to talk about the public sector and the overall workforce, we need to get it in perspective of what the number of employees that work in the public sector vis-a-vis the private sector. It's not out of kilter at all. It's maintained at the same percentage of proportion of the economy at 20% over the last 20 years.
So 20%, which we're not actually at the moment. We're at about, what is it, Chewy? 18 point something?
18.7.
So now they're talking about the core public service, but I put a tweet out today, which was received in a certain way. My data is accurate, right? Because there are currently 450,000 people who are public servants. 450,000 is the accurate number. I cite the resource. I have citations for that that I put up. Now, over all public servants, all of them, right? So that's everything. That's teachers, that's nurses, that's everything. 14,000 new ones is 3%. Now, 3% new public servants since 2017. In the same time period, the population has grown by 10%. Now, someone put a different data up there. They said it was only 9%. But let's just say since 2017, all public servants' numbers have gone up by about 3%. And the population has gone up well more than 3 times that in a percentage-wise. So if anything, perhaps Labor is underutilising the number of public services servants we need across all sectors. Now, something else, Joey, and I've got your quote up on there, your thing up on there. Shall I read it out? I'll read it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's on my screen, it's probably a bit bigger. So percentage of public sector employment, that's all public sector employment, a percentage of the total workforce according to the OECD. Sweden is 28.6%, Denmark is nearly 28%, Finland is 24 and a bit, Iceland is 24, France is 21.2, Belgium is 21.1, Canada is 19.8. Now just think about in your head the best countries to live in. All those countries that end up with like the number one on the happiness scale, number one on the best place to live, number one on the best healthcare, number one on the
educational achievement.
Education, all those ones. Do those names sound fucking familiar? Well, they're all the ones with a full and well-used public sector. New Zealand is at 18.7, and this government wants to get in, the next government potentially wants to get in and drop those numbers dramatically. Remembering that over all of our public servants, we've had a 3% increase when the population is growing, let's say, and be fair, because I don't want to be wrong, by more than 8% in the same time period, Joey.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had right-wing governments try and bring in performance-based funding in education before, and it was fucking disaster. And when you try and bring in these corporate structures and KPIs and stuff like that and try to build someone's remuneration after it and then try and build a bonus structure around it and that sort of thing, it has never worked. It has never worked. It has always been a pretense to run a public service down, to point to it and go, look at the shit show that this is, and look, people are leaving in droves for the private sector, so we might as well just get the private sector to do it. And we end up with privatized water, hospitals, schools, all of that bad stuff. Ryan Bridge is a twat. I think apropos of nothing, but I think it does need to be said. And you look at all of those countries with absolutely like well-functioning government entities, and as you said, all of these good things with educational and happiness and all of that sort of stuff. We're pretty, we always turn to the Scandi countries and go, fuck, those guys have got their shit together.
Yeah,
high taxation, high public service. Everybody seems to fucking dig it. And then we're in that band of like, yeah, but we don't want to do that too much. Belgium, Canada, us, the UK, all very much in a band. And the Scandi countries are happy to do lots more. France has the advantage of if you try and change any sort of social program, someone tries to burn Paris down. So they like to have a few more civil servants in there. But they're dealing with the same thing. They get a right-wing government that wants to sell off to China and that sort of thing. But yes, the idea that a public servant is bad, automatically sitting in a back room, eating their lunch, not doing anything. I know public servants, they work fucking hard. Yeah. And they would much rather work directly for the government, directly in there, rather than private sector contractors, that sort of thing.
It's the shell game as well. We talk about the shell game quite a bit. It is the shell game. Because they're going big number, 400,000, big number.
Bad.
And fuck, it is a big number. You're right, it is a big number, but it doesn't paint the picture. It doesn't paint the picture overall. And much like happened with, and you'll know more about this than me, Chewy, because you're more involved in the knowledge around the Air Force. But when you mothball the Air Force, and all your pilots go off overseas and they do other things, and then if you'd like to start it again, there's none left. So you're going to get rid of half of these people like that. And then when you realize you've completely fucked the country and the government as to how it's supposed to operate, then you try and get people back in to fix it. Or, let's be honest, you have to start paying contractors, which would be the usual situation that you'd find under a national government. Rally against contractors, get rid of a bunch of people, then have to start paying contractors twice as much. you end up being in a worse place. It's not rocket science, but it is populist, and it is Chewy working for them politically.
Yeah, the wheel turns. We've been there in the great fucking state-owned enterprise sellout of the early 90s, that sort of thing. We've seen this overseas, specifically in the UK and that sort of thing. Run down your social services, run down the arms of your government that actually do stuff for the people, and then go, look at this. They're terrible and inefficient. So we're just not going to bother. We're not going to pour money into the NHS or public water or anything like that. We're going to sell it all. And we're going to sell it to people that are going to make profit. So it's not going to be great for you. It's going to be great for our friends.
Yeah.
My friends in the UK, the people that I know in the UK, they are fighting so hard to keep the NHS. And they know that throughout COVID, the UK would have been a basket case without the NHS, but at the same time, the government is trying to run down their COVID response so they could point to the NHS and say it's not fit for standard. And I see that so much with our right-wing Tory-style government. I just know that National is reading the UK Conservative government's fucking homework.
Oh, yeah.
Like even down to the slogans that they use.
Yeah,
it's so obvious. I come back to that mentioning, Simeon Brown running down, the potential for regional rail and how it's expensive and inefficient, and the intercity could do a better job. And then, as I said, you just look, who owns intercity? Oh, okay, a big overseas investment company run out of the Cayman Islands with a single office that is the same office for hundreds of other companies. And there's no bugger there. Oh, but they managed to give National a big fucking donation. Like, it's transparent. It should make people furious.
There you go.
Yes,
at this point, I'm only worried about the left losing because left. And look, let me apologise to everybody. I had a friend of mine say to me, "When's the next merch drop coming?" And I said I could, if I wanted to, work 18-hour days on the show, but at some point I have to stop, and I haven't set up the merch drop yet, and I wanted to have it done by today. So I'll try and get that done this week and give people a chance, because I want to get those left vote, left win ones out before the election. So if we do a 2-week drop, they can probably have them out in 3 to 4 weeks, which will be at least a month before the election. So I apologise about not having that done so far, but I'm just one man. I'm actually 1.5 men. I used to be 2 men, and now I'm 1.5 men. Hey, listen.
True.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, you go.
I was just saying, I saw an amazing clip. I'll try and find it. I'll put it up on our the Facebook page, and Twitter.
Let's move on slowly. Let's move on slowly. We'll just do a couple of these texts that came in as well. He's painful to watch. Ryan Bridge. Ryan has undertones of right-wing views and is so snarky. I has his punchable smug face. I has probably hate. And this is a good one actually by V Bunch. How will you? What's the metric you'll do? And he says under a national government by their profit. That's their metric, by their profit. And that's the thing. If you get incentivized, and there's been cases internationally. My dad used to sell life assurance, so I know a bit about the insurance company. There's been cases all over the world that people who would grant insurance to people would get bonuses if they declined it. So guess what happened? All of these assessors would decline the claims, and it would earn them more money. If you're going to say to the head of a government agency whose job it is to serve the public, if you're going to give them metrics based on things like budgets and KPIs and that kind of stuff, there's a good chance you're going to get some people who are going to diddle the numbers or play with it to make sure they still earn what they want to earn, which sounds horrible, but I'm being honest here about human nature, to the detriment of the people they're supposed to be servicing. And they've
done that.
It's stupid.
They've done that. They weaponized wins against the people, but by the same thing of like, oh, we've got to get people off this thing, this specific targeted benefit that we can track and is for a very specific purpose. So we just want people off that, so we'll just shuffle them over to something else. You had department heads that were just like, we've got to get people off the dole and that sort of thing. I experienced that personally when they wanted me to give up 3 part-time jobs to do 1 full-time job that was only going to last 6 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
But it got me off their roles.
Yeah, right.
So that's what happens when it's just people at the bottom that have to deal with the shit. So Seymour can go, performance based, just like the corporate fucking thing.
So here's a question for everybody in the chat, you as well, Chewy. We've been talking about Victoria Jacobs over the last few weeks protesting at a Julian Bachelor event. We've been talking about, we often talk, me and Chewy, about the protesters here in Dunedin at the Octagon over the Destiny Church situation. We've talked about the protesters who went to Albert Park for Posey Parker. I want to know what people think, because we're supportive of all of those things, of this story from the weekend.
This little Chippy went to market. It did not go to plan.
Can I say, no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, no more Labour pains for people who are opposing Labour? It's a pretty good slogan. It's a pretty good chant. You got to give it to them. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but it's a pretty good chant. It's up there with, what is it, fuck all Nazis? Is that the one you like? But when it comes to making a chant, if you want to speak out against Labour, props. We can look at that and go creative. Give them credit for what they're saying. I mean,
I hate it, but it's a good one.
Sure.
Jacked by the Freedoms Party, a taste perhaps of what's to come on the campaign as the Fringe enters the fray.
It's democracy in action, my friend.
Police on hand, but not required to get hands-on.
The freedom of speech, though, they are allowed to.
Are you worried this campaign is going to be hijacked by the Fringes?
I certainly hope not.
Increasingly, their issues are creeping into the conversation. This crowd screaming at Hipkins to define a woman. They're not the only ones. This week, Winston Peters proposing policy around separate public bathrooms, Act 2 now fluttering on the fringes in its own propaganda podcast.
This is really interesting because Seymour, I reckon, is trying to get back that ground from Winston. Because Winston came out saying these things, and I think Seymour and ACT are seeing Winston as a threat now. And so they've actually taken Winston's lead to go even harder in this area.
Will my daughter end up going to a pool where there's someone that I consider biologically male in the changing room? Well, they're an issue for a lot of people who say, hang on a minute, I want to be able to reserve a space which is for what I regard as biological women. Now, I think people should be able to make those claims.
The main party leader's reticent to react.
I'm not intending to promote legislation to legislate who can and can't use the toilet.
By bathrooms, frankly, at a time when half of New Zealanders are worried about money on a daily basis.
But both calling out the ACT leader for his so-called joke.
I'll give him that one.
In my fantasy, we'd send a guy called Guy Fawkes.
We've done this. We did this last week pretty clearly with Sanjay. So let's just stop on there. First of all, we've got the protesting, and then we've got the response from ACT trying to pick up, I guess, cut New Zealand First lunch, and then the response from Luxon as well. Have at it.
First, just before I go off on my rant, can you play the part of that clip where Rimmer is about to run onto the field, please?
Okay, hang on. Run onto the field.
Yeah, just where you had it paused would be perfect.
So this was...
because if we're talking about fantasies, if we're talking about Rimmer having fantasies, here's my one for that clip.
Okay, let me just see if this. I just want to.
See,
because I'll put it in mute in case I got the wrong spot, but you can talk over it. And is this the right spot? Is this where it's going to be?
Just where he runs onto the field.
No, have I missed it there?
Yeah, I think it's earlier back.
It's not YouTube. Oh, it's going to be after that because that was the original story. Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
Do I need to pause it or anything?
And just pause it there. Okay. This is my fantasy. He has a fantasy of Guy Fawkes walking into the Ministry of Pacific People. I want one of these kids to come out of stage right and just absolutely fucking flatten him. Like right into that table. The trophy goes everywhere. He just gets knocked ass over tit over Pacific Islands 14-year-old that's probably bigger than I am. That's what I want. That's my dream. And just before anybody jumps on me for encouraging acts of violence, that is a joke, which, as we've established, as Seymour has established, is just carte blanche to say whatever fuckery you want to. Just joking, bro.
So what about the protesting? People in the chat, part of democracy. I was thinking about this through the weekend, and I'm trying to be consistent as much as I can. I do wonder if there's a difference between a public discourse around an election, which people need to hear, and a private entity. Are there any differences? Not sure. I think Hipkins handled it really well. He just laughed and said it's part of democracy. Police didn't have to get involved, so therefore, even though it was loud, it was peaceful. Seems like sort of part of the democratic process. What's going to happen from here on in, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Look, that's Tamaki's renter mob, and as much as I hate them, I agree with Hipkins. I agree with the police in this case. Like, being loud is a tactic that I have encouraged against Julian Batchelor. I'm not going to make myself a hypocrite by saying that it's out of order. It is part of the campaign trail. It's something we haven't really seen too much before, like a renter mob harassment. But you know, if I was sitting on a party with 30% of the vote and someone's managed to bring 50 people that make up the entirety of Tamaki's potential voting base, yeah, I'd just move on. It's not worth your time.
But I wonder also if there's going to be any changes to how they're doing things. I wonder if, for example, you know, much like Julian Batchelor started to do, keeping everything secret and just turning up places. Like, the only reason they would have been there to meet him is because it would have been advertised where he was going to be. I mean, the Otara flea markets are amazing. I used to probably go to them once a month when I was living in Auckland. I love the Otara flea markets. I love that area. I used to go there every time I was in Auckland up to that neck of the woods because it was the place where I could get the clothes that fitted me into the Otara shopping centre. It's fantastic. But I love the Otara flea market. It's fun. It's just a great time. And you didn't need to advertise you were going to be there to get a crowd there. There's always lots of people there. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the communications. Will they be telling everyone where they are and have to face protesters everywhere? Will the protesters continue? Were there protesters? Because if it is Tamaki's renter crowd, they were in Auckland. They were in South Auckland. If they were in, I don't know, Timaru, would it be the same? Maybe not. Be an interesting thing to observe.
Yeah, and I think what you'll see is more security, more police, ready for potential trouble. But
the police said it was fine.
I don't think you can really combat it.
Yeah, just on your but so you know what's been coming in, because you know you've hit a nerve. There's maybe a fuck that guy merch drop.
Can we put his picture on a t-shirt and get away with it?
And then Carl also says fold Seymour t-shirt. And then JK says where's Lomo when you need him.
And like a young Lomo, like a high school Lomo, like Lomo 2.
With the little tuft of hair at the front, that one.
Yeah, just like a freight train. God, if my Photoshop skills extended to that, that would be a t-shirt. Just Seymour getting
do we want to do you want shall I investigate that? Because look, I have to do something about t-shirts in the next couple of days, right? If we're going to do it, shall I investigate? Because we get them, are they printed? What are the thing? It's not screen printed, it's the other one. I wonder if they can do a face. Would tell me in the chat, would a fuck that guy thing work for you guys? Would you be interested in at any stage whatsoever? Let me know. Oh yeah, Luke says Jerry Collins. Jerry Collins would be good as well, actually. Jerry Collins folding him in half. The late great Jerry Collins.
Just absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe we can wear them when he comes on.
That's part of your question. The other thing I want to say is, and I said it briefly, I give credit for Luxon for his answer to that when they brought it up. Great messaging from him. Let's stick to the thing that we want to talk about, cost of living. Absolutely no debate there.
But that's not what he wants to stick to, because he does. No. He does culture war stuff all the time. It's just that he doesn't want to get involved in this one. So he's sticking to the messaging for this one. Yeah. So he's sticking to the narrative. He doesn't want to answer it. Yeah.
He didn't stick to this.
But he said the right thing. But tomorrow he'll say something completely the opposite when he gets involved in culture war stuff. He just didn't want to get involved in this culture war stuff.
Yeah, he didn't have the pipeline to his focus group.
Don't say
pipeline.
To
his church leader. What he really thought. Yeah.
All right. Hey, we could wrap up right now, but I actually think I'll throw one more thing at you because it's just a short conversation.
Oh, and I've got one as well. I promised a 90-minute show.
Oh, it is going to be a 90-minute show, you fucking asshole. All right, here we go.
I called it.
Twitter to remove blocking feature. The blocking feature will be removed for users of X, formerly Twitter. Elon Musk has announced, claiming feature makes no sense. Of course, then he spent the afternoon blocking people and bragging about blocking people. Pretty fun blocking people who complain that blocking is going away. Now, let me explain this. He says, how does the medicine taste? The problem is the medicine would be for the person who was doing the blocking, not the people who are blocked. The people who are complaining are saying we want to be able to block people, and he blocks them and goes, how does that feel? And they're going, yeah, but this is what we want. So actually, Elon is the one taking the medicine on this when he says it should go and he's doing it. So he's got it the wrong way around, Chewy. Now, let me say very carefully, and I know you've got some more up-to-date information than this, but this won't happen for one main reason that I think is that it's very clear that the reason that Twitter can be unregulated is because of the block feature. People who are being abused, people who don't want to speak to other people, whatever. It's like, I'm not going to ask you to my party. I have the right to actually exclude you from my party. And if there was no block feature, it wouldn't just be the Wild West. It would be some dystopian future Wild West. And I personally believe this is much like Elon Musk talking about a cage match with Zuckerberg. It's all bluster. It's never going to happen. And he's getting good, I guess, clickbait headlines. And I think there's a reason that it won't happen. Sure, you've got some other reasons why it won't happen, but that's one of the main reasons I think it won't happen.
So I think that the reason it won't happen is because to be on the Apple App Store, social media has to have the ability to block someone. So unless he's going to,
so that's a rule. That's an Apple rule.
People using his app, yeah.
So that's an Apple rule.
Yeah, I haven't looked at Google's App Store. It's probably not there. But
who would? Who'd use an Android? I mean, what would you go to Google Play Store for?
Oh, don't get me started. The other aspects of it. Oh, and I think the whole true reason that he's doing this is I'm going to own up to this one. People like me, that since he made changes with Twitter Blue and advertising and that sort of thing, is without mercy, without consideration, without remorse, I have blocked every single advertiser that pops up on my Twitter feed for the last 2 months.
So you're blocking advertisers.
So I'm blocking advertisers. Now, there's a reason for this. The way that Twitter's algorithm works.
Who's PDB? Yeah, PDB just went past. Who was that?
PDB.
Have you blocked Leo Malloy? PDB.
Yeah, I blocked Leo Malloy because he got my account banned. So but one of the things with the Twitter's algorithm is one of the worst things that you can do for an account's algorithm is block them. They get enough blocks, it restricts their reach. I don't know if it still works that way. But look, I'm still scrolling. I could keep going. But most of these are like influencer, Bitcoin, bullshit drop shipping companies. Just bullshit. Look at this. Yeah, crypto.com. Fuck off. Nothing of value has been lost there. And I'd also like to just highlight who thinks this is a good idea. This guy.
Right.
Elon Musk doesn't want you to ignore him.
Good Lord.
That's edgelord in chief Elon Musk. So fuck that guy.
Lord. I think it's hilarious. I think it's not going to happen. It's not. And if it does happen, I mean, it'll end up being an exodus. I don't know if you got the code that was sent through to you over the weekend for the new Blue Sky app, Chewy. There's a new app actually by Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey is the inventor of Twitter. I don't know how the hell he can start something new up because there'd be a no competition clause in your $1 billion settlement. But he has started up a thing called Blue Sky, and you need to have an access code to be involved with it. Start off with. Did you get the access code sent through to you?
I said I'm talking about them.
Yeah.
Tabs, bro. I haven't had any codes or anything like that.
Okay, I'll send you the code, and you can become a part of Blue Sky if you want. Blue Sky looks exactly like Twitter, and it's Jack Dorsey who's done it. So,
Jack's as bad as Elon is. He believes in the same thing.
But at least when Jack was sort of running Twitter, it wasn't the cesspool that it is now. It was a different kind of cesspool, but it was different. I'm speaking of blocking. I don't really particularly block people on Twitter. I've started doing it more recently, and I kind of made the decision that if you just come on a tweet and go, you fuckwit, I'm like, okay. If you kind of feel me out, that's what she said, about the issue and then call me an idiot. Like, I don't care about being called sweary words, but if you literally just come on and go, fucking idiot, or don't actually add to the conversation, I'm like, well, you're only here for one real reason. If you add to the conversation, then call me a fucking idiot. whatever. But if you just come on,
I've seen people
basically
criticize
abusive.
me this week on the fact that I go by a nickname. It's just what everybody's called me for 20 years. That's all. And the fact that I have this shit in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so nothing that I've said, just those two things. Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So I've started. I haven't, like, I think I looked at my block list once, and I've been on Twitter since like the late 2009. It was like 4 people up until about 2 or 3 months ago, and it's probably 10 now. Because I don't really care. I mean, in general, I don't care. But if you're coming into my timeline just to shit stir, like have at me and have at my opinions and shit away, that's fine. But if it's just a shit stir, look at the cunt again. Okay, well, what you can go. But so that's what I've decided to start doing.
Yeah. I've got one thing. I can do it in 4 minutes, I'm sure.
Although, did you notice Chantal on my timeline in the weekend?
Oh, no, because I blocked her.
Chantal was on my timeline in the weekend trying to refute something we said with Sanjana, to which she said to me something like, this is a bad take even for you. Unintelligent take even for you. And so what that's implying is that you're a moron and this is particularly bad for you. So this is what I did actually for her. I brought up the last time that she contacted me, which was a private message to me telling about how much she respects my approach to information and asking me my opinion on a particular piece of research. And like I said in the thing, I don't normally do that kind of stuff, but when you're going to come on board and have a crack, nothing was tagged. She just decided to come on board and have a crack. Then I'm gonna push back. So I did, and then of course I encouraged everyone to go to the DOC page, pardon me, and look up Chantal Baker, and she can see the videos in which she's always wrong. And funnily enough, she hasn't been on my timeline since, because if she comes back now, then people on her timeline will see these, and maybe go and have a look to all that stuff that we've pointed out that are factually incorrect that she says all the time.
That's a much more structured response than she would have got with me, which would have been, Chantal, you can talk when you've read anything that doesn't have glossy pages.
It doesn't have one. When you open the pages, the pictures don't go shink in the middle when you read past that. Yeah.
Now, you've only given me 2.5 minutes to finish off. 2 minutes. Okay, so Michael Woodhouse pulling the pin over the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Should we do this tomorrow? Should we see if he wants to come on?
And Luxon trying to... No, he's not quitting. He's still contesting the election. So Michael Woodhouse put out a Facebook post over the weekend. Hi, everyone. In the next few minutes, the National Party list for the 2023 election will be announced. My name won't be on it. It's clear from the ranking offered that I was not part of the leadership's thinking regarding ministerial positions, so I feel the best thing to do is to stand aside and allow a fresher face into caucus from the list. I do so somewhat sad about the process of my departure from political life, but overwhelmingly grateful that I've been able to serve the people in the party I love for the last 15 years. No bitterness, just fond memories and fantastic friendships made. Now, Luxon immediately tried to wind that back and saying, no, he's just not on the list. He's still contesting the election. And that's because there's billboards up all over Dunedin with his name on it. The other thing that I thought stood out to me especially is there is absolutely no mention of the people of his electorate or Dunedin as a whole.
Yeah.
Like if you're an MP and you're talking about the people that you have served and have been generous enough to vote for you, even though you have almost no chance of getting in the Dunedin electorate, 9,500 of you, no mention of you.
Yeah.
Now, people in Dunedin know why. He does not give a fuck about Dunedin. So, yes, you look at the National Party list and you see where Uffindell is and you see where Maureen Pugh is, and you go, well, if you were rated somewhere around there, I would have rage quit as well.
Yeah, they haven't released the number. Everyone's been asking for the number and no one will release it. It's interesting. And I also wonder if Michael Woodhouse, I've only interacted with him maybe twice ever, and he seems to be an okay guy, but I wonder if he'll turn into a human being once he leaves National. So many of them do. They get away from the actual having to toe the party line and then they become real human beings.
90-minute show.
Oh, you're an asshole. You're
right. I am a man that delivers.
All right, team. Hey, it's been great to be with you tonight. Thanks for being on. Make sure that you smash that like. Is that what you say? I don't know.
Smash it. Smash that bell. Like I smashed your mum.
Oh, come on. Some news for this week. Shane DePoe is booked in to join us on Thursday night. Chewy's not available, so I thought we'll try and get the B team on. So Shane DePoe will be coming on board. Unless something comes up. He's obviously far busier than any of us. But at the moment, he's got it in his diary, booked in to come in on Thursday night, and he'll spend the evening with us. Other than that, I guess Tuesday, Wednesday, we come on and keep on. And if you haven't seen the Sanjay Hatatoa conversation for Friday night, you should really go and watch it.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
it was a really good one. And to be honest, I'll probably, even though we had it on Friday, it's still very relevant. I'll be putting some more clips out there over the next few days. So follow us on Twitter and we'll go from there. All right. I think we're done. I think we're good. I think we're done and dusted. So thank you for being with us again tonight. No tangents. But anything you want to finish with?
I've done my tangents.
Right.
I'm a good boy. Chewy, good gorilla.
It's actually, you know what? This is actually pretty true. Is Mondays for the next sort of 5 or 6 or 7 weeks probably going to be pretty full because so much is happening in the weekends. I tried to talk Chewy into doing a solo on Sunday nights, but he refused to do it. So, Mondays might be busy for the next wee while. So pass it around to your friends. Let them know what's going on. Hashtag
Sunday's
share our
probably
shit.
not a bad idea because we could cover off the Sunday shows.
Shit.
Okay.
Maybe in the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the election, we'll think about adding some more shows. Because remember, what we will be doing in those weeks is simulcasting. I don't know if we can say that officially because that might be copyrighted. We'll be having a watch party for the debates. And they typically will probably start at 7:30 at night. So if you want to be a part of what we're doing, then that needs to be the situation. So yeah, they'll probably, on those nights, they'll be earlier, and I don't know, we might hang around afterwards and open up Discord and let you guys have a chat, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get some of our friends on after the debates, like they do in real TV, where they have a panel afterwards, they have a chat about it. That's not a bad idea, actually, Chewy, but we'll be pissed by then.
Yeah. I got some ideas.
All right, team. Thanks for being with us tonight. Appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition. Oh, Free Soul just said, yeah, Sunday. Don't do it. Don't do it. Catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hero News. Hooroo, team. Ciao.
See you.